Senator Sanders, I assume that you have been watching some of the hearings this morning. Have you learned anything that you did not know, and if so, what?
Well, I agree with what Mr. Isikoff said. Here's what the issue is. Everybody in America and everybody in Congress wants our intelligence people to do everything they can to foil any type of terrorist attack. There's not much debate about that. The question is, what kind of nation do we want to be as we fight terrorism? Do we feel comfortable with every single telephone call made in the United States by you, by me, by everybody else being filed by the United States government? Now, what the administration and the NSA say is not to worry. We have all types of controls on here. Nobody will get into it. Well, maybe. Maybe not. Unfortunately, we have seen Mr. Snowden get into it. Furthermore, in years to come, who is going to be president? Do you really want a situation where somebody has the potential to go into a file to a Secretary of State's phone calls and say, you know, we know you've been calling this woman. Are you having an affair? And the potential for blackmail. Do you really want the United States government to know that when you're calling your lawyer, when you're calling your psychiatrist? Are we comfortable with the government having that much information? I think most Americans are not to mention getting into the websites that we visit. What's the answer? The answer is pretty simple, it seems to me, is to make sure that Section 215 of the Patriot Act says when the intelligence agencies or the FBI have reasonable suspicion, if they believe somebody is involved in terrorist activities, we want them to be able to go after that guy in any way they can. But you can't have a blanket system in which every single phone call in America is in the government file.
Do you think, Senator, this is going to lead to a much closer look at the Patriot Act, making some changes?
Well, you know, the president has said he wants a debate on this issue. I think we should have that debate, and I certainly hope that we will make reforms with the Patriot Act. I have legislation, and other folks do as well, and I think we should move in that direction.
Senator, if you could stand by with me for just a few minutes. We want to listen into to a little bit more of the hearing, but I want to get your take on it as well. So stay with me as we listen in.
None of that information is in the database.
Just a phone number pops back up.
Just a phone number. Right. What comes back if you query the database are phone numbers that were in contact, if there are any, with that number. And again, the other information in that database would indicate when that call occurred and what the duration of that call were to be.
Okay, but again, I just want to make very clear, there are no names and no addresses in that database.
There are not, sir.
Okay. And why only less than 300 queries of phone numbers into that database?
So only less than 300 numbers were actually approved for query against that database. Those might have been applied multiple times, and therefore there might be some number greater than that of actual queries against the database. But the reason there are so few selectors approved is that the court has determined that there's a very narrow purpose for this use. It can't be to prosecute a greater understanding of a simply domestic plot. It cannot be used to do anything other than terrorism, and so therefore there must be very well-defined, describable, written determinations that this is a suspicion of a connection between a foreign plot and a domestic nexus. If it doesn't meet those standards, then this
and are those queries reported to the court?
Those queries are all reported to the Department of Justice, reviewed by the Department of Justice. The number of those queries are reported to the court, and any time that there is a dissemination associated with the U.S. person.
Is there a court-approved process in order to make that query into that information of only phone numbers?
There is, sir. The court explicitly approves the process by which those determinations were made, and the Department of Justice provides a rich oversight auditing of that capability.
Great, thank you. Mr. General Alexander, is the NSA on private companies' servers as defined under these two programs?
We are not.
Is the NSA have the ability to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails under these two programs?
No, we do not have that authority.
Does the technology exist at the NSA to flip a switch by some analyst to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails?
No.
So the technology does not exist for any individual or group of individuals at the NSA to flip a switch to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails.
That is correct.
Right. When Mr. Joyce, if you could help us understand that. If you get a piece of a number, there's been some public discussion that, gosh, there's just not a lot of value in what you might get from a program like this that has this many levels of oversight. Can you talk about how that might work into an investigation to help you prevent a terrorist attack in the United States?
Investigating terrorism is not an exact science, and it's like a mosaic. And we try to take these disparate pieces and bring them together to form a picture. There are many different pieces of intelligence. We have assets, we have physical surveillance, we have electronic surveillance through legal process, phone records, through additional legal process, financial records. Also, these programs that we're talking about here today. They're all valuable pieces to bring that mosaic together and figure out how these individuals are plotting to attack the United States here, or whether it's U.S. interests overseas. So every dot, as General Alexander mentioned, we hear the cliche frequently after 9/11 about connecting the dots. I can tell you as a team, and with the committee and with the American public, we come together to put all those dots together to form that picture to allow us to disrupt these activities.
Thank you.
Senator Bernie Sanders has been standing by as well, listening to these hearings with us. Senator, let me bring you back in here. We just heard a response, sort of, to what we were just talking about. Apparently, according to James Cole, Deputy Attorney General, the technology does not exist that allows the NSA to flip a switch and listen in on phone conversations or read emails as well. Does that response suffice for you, Senator Sanders?
Well, let me just say this. What you heard is that the quote-unquote only thing that they're doing is compiling phone numbers but not names. Well, I mean, between you and me, it doesn't take much of a genius to figure out that once they have your phone number, they can figure out your name. And the other point that they keep making, which is a fair point, is, look, we have all of these safeguards. Don't worry. Well, safeguards work when they work. Talk to the people in Fukushima, Japan, about all the safeguards they have in terms of a nuclear meltdown. If you have a rogue operator in there with all of this information, bad things can happen. So I'm sure that these guys are honorable people. I'm sure that they are obeying the law. But when you have that much information stored and somebody who is not honorable gets in there, bad things can happen. Do we need to have a list of a file of every phone call made by every American? I think not.
Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, always good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Folks, we're going to continue to watch this here, and we're also going to bring in our agenda panel on the other side of the break. Come back.